We're here at the NCUA headquarters to discuss the outcome of the NCUA November board meeting with board member Rick Metsger. First, I want to thank you for taking time to speak with us today.
Absolutely. Happy to do it.
This was a very important board meeting for you in your term.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel any pressure at the meeting casting any of these important votes?
No, not at all. I was very, very pleased with the results of everything today. And as you know, and I'm sure the viewers understand, the work is done behind the scenes. And there's a lot of gnashing of teeth. I think that came out in the meeting today, and things that go on behind the scenes to try and get to resolution of issues in an appropriate way for the industry and as for the regulated, for us as regulators. And I think it came together extremely well. I think the results were excellent. I think it serves both the regulated community and the regulator's role well as a result of today's work.
How do you think credit unions will react to the operating budget increase for 2014?
Well, yeah, I think in anything, everybody raises their budget because they think they need to, and they think no one else needs to raise theirs. So I'm kind of used to that from over the years. This is an extremely fiscally wise budget, meeting our obligations. Again, I think I indicated in the meeting we started out as double-digit requests and worked on this very aggressively the last couple of months to meet our obligations as a regulator and in a fiscally wise way. And I think I mentioned to the meeting, our employees, for example, for the last 2 years have been under a pay freeze while all the other regulated entities have not been. And when Congress lifted the pay freeze, our collective bargaining agreement came into effect for the coming year. And, we have an overall budget of increase of just 6.7%. 3.53 of that is the mandatory obligation under the existing collective bargaining agreement. So not even with the other issues that were brought up, you're talking the overall budget, minus that CBA is actually only about 3.17%. Still with the increase in asset size of the credit unions that we are required to regulate effectively.
Prior to the board meeting, CUNA and NAFCU both said they wanted to see the budget stay the same or decrease. Now that we've seen it increase, what do you say to the trade organizations and even credit unions who may be tightening their belts?
Well, the credit unions are paying less. If you noticed at the end result, the operating fee is being reduced by 18.4% from the previous year. In terms of their capital outlay. So, and that's the highest in over 10 years. And I'm sure the trade organizations, like anyone else, would always like to be able to do something for nothing. But I'm sure in their own situations, they find they have expenses that they need to meet as well. This budget was really, really tight, and yet it met our obligations. I'm very proud of it. I think anyone who understands these issues well will agree that this has been a very, very well put together budget.
The last time we spoke, you raised some concerns about costs in general across many issues.
Right.
Looking at the costs coming out of this meeting in terms of the CUSO rule, for example, Are you satisfied with what?
I am, and I think Board Member Friesel mentioned that it was almost a $2 million fee to get this going. We reduced that by about 30 to 35%. Most of this is. There's a lot of software development as well as being able to have, the personnel to interpret the results. So when you look at the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been lost to the Share Insurance Fund because of losses at CUSOs versus the $1.4 million to hopefully get information to help mitigate that, that's an extremely effective, cost-effective ratio.
And going forward, what issue are you going to be focusing most of your time on in the next month or two, before the end of the year?
Well, I think these initiatives that we've been doing, the emergency liquidity rule, which we passed last month, now with the CUSO rule, seeing that the implementation of these new rules goes well and in a timely fashion. Just like the credit union community, we have obligations that we continue to receive from other entities that we need to implement. And so really working to ensure that those are done well, that information that is conveyed to the credit union community is accurate and precise and timely. I think those will be the major focuses as we move into the new year.
And I wanted to ask you about the corporate assessment at zero.
Right.
Are you satisfied with the J.P. Morgan settlement and the effect that that's had on corporate assessments?
You know, that's our entire legal team. This was an amazing recovery. You go in these things, you don't know whether you'll get anything, and you don't know, even if you might, how many years that may take. Our team did an extraordinary job, I think more than anyone really anticipated would ever happen. And that has resulted, as you mentioned, you talk about costs, for the first time, you know, a 0% assessment, and hopefully maybe multiple years as a result of this. And when you think of the hundreds of millions of dollars that credit unions now will have back into their deposits to be able to meet member services, it's a tremendous win for everyone.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate
very much.
it.
Okay, take care.